I'm James Bohnaker. I'm a senior economist for Cushman Wakefield and also the head of our retail research team. And so my job is really to publish thought leadership, really tell the story, what's going on in the retail market so that tenants, landlords, developers can make better informed decisions, which I think is so important right now, and it's really exciting just because there's been a lot of false narratives around retail over the past few years, and it's really an exciting time where we're starting to see growth and a lot of optimism in the market. So it's a very exciting time to be involved in retail, and looking forward to talking about it. Yeah, it's really data driven, right? If you look at what's going on in the retail market from a leasing perspective, absorption, we've got vacancy rates that in open air shopping centers are the lowest they've ever been. And that's both a demand story and a supply story too. And I think it's important to tell that because tenants in the marketplace today are paying a lot more in rent, a lot more in construction costs, and they really have to make smart decisions. And so that's really the story that we're trying to tell, a very objective, data-driven approach to how we advise clients. Yeah, I mean, the optimism is as enthusiastic as I've seen it over the past few years. Retailers tend to be an optimistic bunch, but I think just given some of the evolution that we've seen in consumer trends and technology, personalization, all of these things coming out the other side of the pandemic, we're now in a place where retailers are able to actually implement those strategies that they've been working on for so many years. And those who did really well over the past few years, we're seeing, the winners kind of separate from the rest of the pack. And that's very exciting. And they're being very aggressive and optimistic in their expansion plans. And that's just a really good thing for retail real estate. Yeah, obviously it's early stages with generative AI, but I think that, looking ahead, the next 5, 10, 20 years, I think there's really the consumer aspect, right, which I think is very exciting for retailers, just being able to get to know your customers in ways that we haven't been able to, ways to engage with them that we don't even know about yet that are going to be very exciting. And I think ultimately the store is going to be the place where that all comes together, right? A lot of this happens on the back end with apps and social media, but ultimately it is the store where consumers are interacting with brands and interacting with products. And so I think it's going to be really interesting to see how that evolves over the next few years. Yeah, absolutely. And I think they've had to be, right? Because the operating margins, it's been so difficult, right, going through the pandemic and even prior to that, that it's really weeded out a lot of the weaker retailers in the market. And obviously we saw a lot of store closures. But those who made it through and really thrived and gained market share during the pandemic and following, they've had to be really smart about their real estate decisions, right? Because as I mentioned, it's very expensive to open stores. You can't just decide you want to open 100 or 200 stores and just go based on the demographics alone. There's a lot more science behind it and data-driven approaches, and that's what really is separating those who are doing well with the real estate and those who aren't. Yeah, I mean, absolutely, right? The vacancy rate across open air retail centers is the lowest on record, and especially in suburban markets. And I think that really ties back to sort of how consumers have evolved over the past few years, right? You think about migration patterns, you think about work from home, you think about how people are spending their time, and also the economic drivers that we've had. A lot of people have been calling for a recession. That hasn't happened. So there's a lot of money out there, and consumers are excited about that social experience of getting out and getting into stores. That being said, the way we shop has evolved, right? We've got more buy online, pick up in store, just operating through different formats, and so retailers have had to adapt to that. But ultimately, retail has really thrived over the past few years, and there's prospective tenants in the market just lining up to take space in high quality retail centers where the demographics are good. And so that's a very exciting thing for the retail industry as a whole. Yeah, I think that's been a huge factor really for the health of retail real estate and why we're seeing this renaissance in terms of demand and low vacancy rates. It really comes back to what consumers are looking for when they go out to shop, or whether they're buying retail goods or services. So, we've seen a huge increase in the amount of medical use in retail centers, veterinary, spa services, health and wellness, and that's an underlying trend that we're seeing in the younger demographics of consumers. And so I think this trend is something that's going to continue on into the next decades as the next generation becomes the primary consumer cohort. And not to be left out, right? The restaurant industry is always evolving and just such a big driver for thinking about retailtainment, eatertainment, where people are looking for that social experience that you just can't get at home. And so we're seeing a lot of new interesting concepts that are really driving foot traffic, duration of stay, and really benefiting the overall shopping center. Absolutely. The old adage of value and convenience is still the primary thing that consumers are looking for. So on the value side, you absolutely see that with who's expanding, but I think the convenience factor is equally important, right? And so if you look at migration patterns for what happened during the pandemic and even following, not only have people been moving more frequently to kind of secondary markets, but even within primary markets, further away from the downtowns into emerging suburbs, where they have more affordable home options, better schools, that kind of thing. And so that's something that's going to be a trend over the longer run, and that's really benefiting shopping centers in those areas because, and I think what also plays into it is more hybrid work, right? So people not just going out on the weekends to go shopping or after work, but really taking midday trips, right, to get that quick grocery trip in, to take a quick trip to the pharmacy, right, and making multiple stops along the way. So I think that's really a crucial aspect, and landlords and tenants really are benefiting from thinking about their strategies of where people are spending their time and when they're doing their shopping trips.